Hello, and welcome to Mythology Breakdown, the YouTube channel where we discuss Greek mythology and how it affects the day-to-day lives of us today, namely in fiction, such as movies, books, television, all that kind of stuff. We are going to start off with my favorite, which is the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. That's probably going to be the bulk of my videos for the first little bit, just so I can, get more comfortable with the material that I already know. We're going to be discussing things from the first couple of chapters. Namely, we're going to be discussing Chiron, we're going to be discussing Satyrs, and we're going to be discussing the three Furies, also known as the Erinyes. That's one of the few things that I actually wanted to talk about. We're going to start off with them, even though they don't appear first, just because it's so fascinating. There are two worlds that are most commonly known with the Greeks and the Romans. A lot of the Romans were influenced by the Greeks. So we obviously know that Zeus is known as Jupiter. We know that Hades is known as Pluto. But there's also different names for the different beings, such as the three Furies. That is actually the Roman term for them. The Greeks called them the Erinyes. And I find it very interesting that Rick Riordan decided to use the Roman name for them. Probably because it's more simpler and easy to understand. The Erinyes are also called the kindly ones, and they were kind of like reapers of destruction. Their purpose was to punish people that did wrong. So there was three of them. There was Alecto, Tisiphone, and Megara. Megara? I should really look up the pronunciations of these things. And they all had different kinds of purposes. So Alecto was the implacable one. She's the most commonly known one, and she's also the one that we see in Percy Jackson at first. She's the first one that we meet. And she was the instigator of violence. She was the one that started a war. She was hated by Hades. And, yes, this is my cat. This is Athena. Then we also have her sister Tisiphone, who is the other most commonly known one. She is the Avenger of Murder. She is the guardian of the gates of Tartarus, which we'll get into a little bit later in my series. And then there's also Megara, who we really don't know a ton about, but she is the envious one. Between the three of them, they were sent to punish individuals that did wrong. And they are children of Gaia, who was the mother. She's Mother Earth. She is the big kahuna. She is the main, the mother of everything. And she birthed the three Furies. The Furies are also the ones who execute the underworld punishment. So after people, creatures, mortals, demigods, anything died, they were sent to the underworld, where they were either sent to the fields of Elysium, or the Astolfo Meadows, or Tartarus if they were truly evil. And the Furies were the ones that executed the punishment for these truly evil beings, which I found really interesting. However, in the Percy Jackson novels, you don't really get to know all of this information. They're just called the kindly ones. You don't speak of them. You don't want to interact with them. However, poor Percy has Alecto at his school, and she tries to kill him, and we later find out that she was sent by Hades. And yeah, that's it for the fates. We might get into that more later, but that's what the bulk of my research was telling me. I also wanted to talk about satyrs, because this is another thing that Rick Riordan took bits and pieces from both Greek and Roman ideals and kind of, mooshed them into one. So when mythology first talks about satyrs, they are described as very sexual creatures. Very sexual creatures. They had, huge, and they were also horses instead of goats. A lot of times, modern day and late Greeks portrayed satyrs as being half goat. They would have goat legs and a goat tail and goat horns, and that's how they are in the Rick Riordan novels. However, when they first appeared, they were half horse. Not like centaurs. They only had 2 horse legs and not 4. But they had the tails and they had the temperament. And I found that very interesting, because I had no idea of that until recently. And the other important thing about satyrs that changed from mythology to Rick Riordan's novels is the fact that in mythology, satyrs, they party. They party, and they party, and they party, and that's all they want to do. They want to party, they want to sleep with things. They don't do any work. But in Percy Jackson, they're protectors. They are the ones that take the demigods and they, protect them and make sure they get to camp safely. And it's heavily implied that that's because the satyrs are... Oh my gosh, I just forgot the word. Satyrs are patrons. That's the word. Satyrs are patrons of the god Dionysus, who we know is the leader of Camp Half-Blood in the novels. And so it kind of makes sense that since the satyrs of mythology work closely with Dionysus, the fact that Dionysus kind of leads this camp, the satyrs would be there and kind of work for him. I just find it very interesting that the temperaments have changed, and that's what fascinates me so much about them. Is, in mythology, they were literally just nobody. Like, you don't really have a lot of satyrs that were named unless they were part of some sort of romantic conquest of some sort of another. But in the Rick Riordan novels, they become, a pretty integral part to their society. Which lastly brings me to Chiron. Now, Chiron is the one segment here that really doesn't differ a lot from history and mythology. So Chiron is a centaur. And Chiron is the one that trains heroes. He always has. He has, for years and years and years. Chiron is the son of Kronos, who was the king titan. And that didn't change when it hit the books. In fact, it's pretty an integral part to that. However, in mythology, Chiron dies. And it's completely... So in mythology, Chiron dies. We're going to take a step back. Boop, 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 boop. So Chiron dies because of... Oh my gosh. I just forget. Chiron dies because he is shot by, I believe it's Heracles, on accident. Heracles didn't mean to shoot him. And the only reason that Chiron died was to save someone else. And it's actually really sweet. Basically, Chiron was granted immortality when he was younger, so he could train heroes for as long as they need. And that's why he appears in the Percy Jackson novels, because the heroes still need him. However, in mythology, he unfortunately died. And that sucks. But I'm glad that he's in the Percy Jackson novels because he is iconic. I wish that I could be best friends with him. Yeah. That's all I really got for y'all today. I'm hoping that over time I can become more organized. I still can't quite figure out how to edit my videos. If you've got a good editing software, I would really appreciate it if you dropped it down below. But yeah, if you guys like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.